Quite some time before manufacturers on the whole started seeing subcompact city cars as a way to make proper money and coincidentally appear more eco-friendly, there was one maker of tiny cars with tiny engines. And when they first arrived here, South Africans laughed and laughed. And laughed. The smart car was never adopted here to nearly the same extent it was in Europe, where they've sold over 1 million of the things. Locally, people tended to see them more as gimmick mobiles, where the unusual looks could be exploited by covering the car with branding to advertise everything from real estate agents to tax consultants to gardening services. Although I do think Smart are about to have the last laugh because tiny cars with tiny engines aren't just familiar, they're pretty popular. And even though they are a more common sight on our roads than they've ever been, Smart still manages to be unique. Just look at it. It's not going to be confused for anything else, ever. Even this bigger 4four version, with its longer body and extra rear doors, is short and stubby, and at the same time, for me, it has a weird sportiness about it, although that is helped by the almost non-existent overhangs. The front end of this latest generation has been softened up a bit. The new grille, with the choice of colors, sits slightly below the reshaped headlights, which now feature LED daytime running lights. Where the last one was at best cute, the new Smart has a definite stylishness to it. It certainly is far less quirky than it's ever been. The interior, well, that retains some quirkiness with a pod rev counter and a slider for the aircon, and there is some downright oddness. This universal phone adapter is a good idea, but it's not the neatest execution in the world, and it does get in the way of some of the controls. Otherwise, it's a very nicely executed interior, and even this baseline spec gets some decent toys like cruise control. For 200,000 Rand, there really isn't anything missing here. Remote central locking, USB, Bluetooth, climate control. The fabric inserts on the door panels and the dashboard do a lot to add to the quality of the cabin, and despite that awkward optional phone cradle, it's generally top class. It's quite a versatile little thing too. Cleverly, you can remove the sub for the sound system to create more space, and with the rear seats folded down, you get a mighty 975 litres, bigger than anything else it competes against. Although I wouldn't make use of all that load space because I'm not sure the little Smart would cope. It's packed with a 1-litre 3-cylinder motor, which is not uncommon, but it's missing a turbo. That means the power output is 52 kilowatts, 91 newton meters. And although it feels all right here at coastal altitude, I'm not quite sure it'll do that well on the reef. Don't rush out and order your smart car just yet. A 66 kilowatt turbo version will soon be available, and the base price is just 10 grand more than this car's. We spent quite a bit of time on the open road on our test drive, which isn't where you'd expect to see one of these too often. But the reality is that South Africans do drive long distances, and when it comes to road tripping, the 4four can cope. It's not stellar, but it can cruise at highway speeds. There is another reason to opt for the turbo motor, and that's because it'll be available with a dual-clutch gearbox, which at the very least should be far better than the previous generation's automatic, which was, well, it was horrendous. So better power and a better gearbox should make this a better all-round drive. The main problem with this non-turbo 5-speed manual version is that you need to concentrate on your gearing, otherwise it tends to run out of legs, especially on anything resembling an incline. Overtaking generally requires a downshift and a decent amount of road. That need to keep an eye on the revs means that matching Smart's claimed 4.2 litres per 100 Ks is a tough ask. There is one thing the Smart is designed to do particularly well, and that's, unsurprisingly, take on city living. And besides its tiny footprint, it does have some clever engineering, like some body panels that are made from plastic, so they're less likely to suffer from those annoying parking lot dings. And it has an unbelievably tiny turning circle. For all its open road shortcomings, the Smart is good around town. Confident, agile handling, decent steering, and an easy shifting gearbox. The power concerns remain, although in a city environment it's far easier to live with. Useful around town is the decent tech that's available with the Smart, from the standard collision warning to the optional lane keeping assist and park distance control. It looks like nothing else. It's got a well-sorted interior, and in its natural environment of the city, it does offer a decent drive. And even though it's been joined by a whole bunch of competition in the small city car playground, the Smart 4four still manages to do things its own way. The non-turbo 1-litre 3-cylinder will most likely feel very average at altitude. The more powerful turbo version would be a better drive. It's also offered with a dual-clutch gearbox. Around town, the Smart fits into its city dweller billing very well, with unique looks and an easy drive. It's also more versatile than expected, offering a decent amount of load space with the rear seats down.